welcome to the Agnete Cardigan vlog. I'm very excited to be casting this on. I've been wanting to knit this for a while, not too long, but just I've been obsessed with it over the past few months, and I knew I was going to cast this on in 2025. So I thought I would do this project vlog because I'm sure I'm going to run into some hurdles with this one, and I thought it would be fun, maybe for you, not for me, to take you along with me. And yeah, we'll just see how that goes. The Agnete cardigan is a pattern by PetiteKnit. It is an all-over brioche cardigan with a double knit pattern band, and it is a v-neck cardigan that is just absolutely stunning. I don't think it has too much positives. I haven't decided yet which size I'm going to make, so I'm going to decide on that right before I cast on, but I love brioche. I've already done a brioche project before, but this was a summer garment, so much quicker than a cardigan, and I had to shrug that one back 3 whole times before I could, continue knitting on it and make it work for me. So we'll see how a full-on cardigan will work, because I know brioche is really hard to fix. I think the stitch itself is quite simple, let's say, but fixing a mistake in brioche is painful, so wish me luck. I am going to be using Knitting for Live Merino and Soft Silk Mohair for this one in this perfect colorway, which is called Red Currant. I am in love with the color and I cannot wait to cast this on and have this on my needles. I love the combination of Merino and Soft Silk Mohair by Knitting for Live, and it's been a while since I've worked with this, so I'm excited to work on this again. So I am gonna fill up my knitting notebook with the specs for this one, and then I'm gonna cast on with you. This is only the beginning and we're already up to her hurdle, so I didn't film me actually casting on and everything because it's a little bit fiddly. Thankfully there is a video tutorial, but I apparently can't even follow that. And like we're not even into the brioche yet. This is just the double knitting, and yeah. Basically, you can see you're supposed to do Judy's magic cast on, so you have 2 rows of stitches on each needle. Then you put one on a stitch holder, and then you do double knitting on the one that's still live. But my stitches, I don't know if you're gonna see, my stitches are twisted, and like I was really careful. I did it twice, and I was really careful not to twist my stitches when I was doing the first row of double knitting, so I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna start again for the 3rd time. Hopefully 3rd time's a charm. Hi, I've just filmed a podcast, but I wanted to update you guys on the vlog about my progress on the Agnete cardigan, and this is how it's looking so far. So I've finished the increases on the back panel, and now I'm just knitting back and forth, which you can see here is about where I've stopped the increases. And now I'm knitting back and forth on the back panel before I can move on to one of the front panels. And I think it's looking great. I'm really happy with it. I'm gonna keep working on the back panel and then I'll catch up with you guys. I will also, just before I leave, say that the increases are really easy. If you've never knit brioche before, it's really not that complicated. If you're too scared, maybe knit a swatch of the brioche stitch and then knit 1 or 2 increases to see how that is, but it's very easy. If you're comfortable with yarn overs because of lace or whatever, I think you're gonna be fine. It is slow going though. Brioche takes a while, but we're patient and we love it. About the Agnete cardigan, but it's back on my needles and I thought I should do a little update. I've lost the thingy that makes me able to put the mic on my body. That's a bit weird, but I'm just gonna hold it and we'll pretend that it's fine. And you might be able to see now in the next few clips that I'm in a different location altogether because I've moved since picking this back up. But probably doesn't look like there's much change, but I've done the second buttonhole just here. So I've just got to do the third, or to reach the third and then make it. And then I think I'll have half of the length between each button to do before I start the ribbing. Let's talk about the buttons first, like the buttonholes. I sort of followed the pattern for that, but also not. So I followed the pattern in terms of stitches that I needed on my needles for the buttonholes and everything, but I did use PetiteKnit's newest technique to do buttonholes without breaking the yarn. So I followed the tutorial from the Lulu sleepover. So if you go on PetiteKnit's website, you look up Lulu sleepovers, and then you have the description tab and the videos tab, and under the videos tab you have all of the techniques used in that pattern, including how to make buttonholes without breaking the yarn. So I followed that up. So you basically knit in double knitting, but when you reach that middle point in between, sort of bang on in the middle of that double knitting, you actually create a yarn over so that it creates that hole without breaking the yarn, which is, you know, means you have less ends to weave in, so I love that. But I've been reading a little bit ahead of the pattern now. I haven't checked on Ravelry what people are saying, so I'll do that afterwards and I'll let you know. But I've read ahead on the pattern as for the last buttonhole that's in the ribbing on the body. And it says, and I'm so confused by it, so that's why I want to mention it. It says that you're supposed to do the ribbing in the same needle size as the body, so 3mm if you follow the pattern. For me that's 3.5mm needles. But it says to put on hold the stitches for the button band, because then you're supposed to knit it on 2.5mm needles, but for the rest of the pattern you're supposed to knit it on 3mm needles, the same as the body. So I'm confused by why you have to change needle size for the double knitting just for the one that's like at the bottom of the body around the ribbing, because obviously I think that's going to change the gauge of that double knitting. So I can't figure out why that's meant to happen. So I'm gonna look up a few Ravelry projects. I'm confused. So I thought I would mention it in case you're making this pattern and you're confused as well. And I'll let you know when I reach that point what I've been able to find out online. I also know of a couple people who've knitted that cardigan before, so I'm gonna send them a message to ask them what they did for the button band, or like for the ribbing at that point. But yeah, otherwise it's going well. I figured out why it was a little bit painful to knit on, and that's because when I was doing the yarn overs and then knitting a stitch, I was just making it way too tight, and so that's why it was really tough to pull the stitches on my needles. And now it's definitely a little bit better. So I've gained 2 minutes per row, so not crazy amount, but I've gone from about 16 minutes a row to 14 minutes, so still a win. And the knitting experience is just that much better. So if you've had that issue, and I don't think it changed my gauge too much. Hopefully you could see that. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to knitting on it and I'll let you know when I've got an update for you. Mathilde from the future, because the clip that I filmed to explain to you what I did to fix my mistake and exactly what my mistake was didn't have any sound. So we're just doing it again because I'm editing this video now and I'm realizing it's not very clear. So what happened was, when I did the cast on, which is the Judy's Magic cast on, I think in my head I followed the video by Kimi Mukon exactly, but I think I did cast on 3 times in a row because I couldn't get it right. And on the 3rd time I thought I had done it, but when I finished the back panel and I picked up stitches for the right shoulder, I realized I did not do it right, because when you do a Judy's Magic cast on, you have stitches on your 2 needles, right? You have stitches on your left needle and your right needle, and you need to start knitting on one of the needles, which I think is the one on the back, so I think that's the left needle technically, and you need to start knitting. And basically what happened was that instead of having my knit stitches on that side, the one facing me, I had the purl stitches, and so basically the wrong side was facing me instead of the right side. So I guess I must have put the stitches on hold from the wrong needle, and so that meant that my work was facing the wrong way anyway. So I had purl stitches like in the middle of my button band, and I debated fixing it or not, but one of my friends, Ali from Supercraftalicious on Instagram, was really kind and helped me navigate through it and do it together. Because it was the cast on edge, I was really worried about, undoing the stitches and basically the whole thing unraveling. And by the time I got around to fixing it, as you saw in the vlog, I was already pretty far down on the cardigan. But what I ended up doing was putting stitches on, or like picking up stitches as if I was doing a lifeline before and after the cast on. So you won't be able to tell too much now because it's fixed, but I had needle above the purl row and below the purl row, and I had the same thing on the other side as well. And then I cut the yarn of my cast on, or like I cut the first stitches of my cast on to be able to undo that purl row, and then I basically kitchen stitch it together. And to be honest, I think it looks pretty neat. Like you can see there's a little bit of a weird transition, and on the wrong side. But when you look at it from afar, and I don't want to spoil too much of the cardigan, you really can't see it. So I'm pretty pleased with this fixed. I'm really grateful for my friend for helping me, coach me through it, mostly for motivation. I was way too worried and anxious, and just having someone walk me through it really helped me out, because I think otherwise I wouldn't have bothered fixing it. But I think it looks really good, and so I would just say, if you're casting on this project, just be wary of the cast on. It's Judy's Magic cast on isn't too bad, but because you do have to put one of those stitches that are on one needle on hold, it's a little bit fiddly. Let's get back to the vlog. updated you in a while, but I am well on my way on the first sleeve. This is taking a while, but it's actually really nice. I know some people have decided to knit the sleeve flat and then seam it together because they didn't want to have purl rounds, because when you knit brioche flat you only do knit rounds but brioche style, but when you knit in the round you have to do one knit round, one purl round and repeat. But I actually really like it because it makes me feel as if it's going faster, because I have that change, I guess, in my knitting, so I actually really like it. And I have done the decreases, as you can see. I have messed up here, which isn't on the decrease here. I dropped a stitch whilst I was knitting and I realized, but I didn't have any internet because I was in another country to look at the video to see how to fix it. So yeah, that's there, that's fine. And also I messed up, and I'm not sure like how that happened on one of the decreases, but I mean it's not too noticeable. You can see here I have one like kind of pearl stitch, and that's how it should look. So, but it's under the arm, so it's like that's okay. I don't really care. This is the state of the bottom of this because I haven't finished it, and I want to finish it because I've got too many things, and so I'm gonna finish the body. Well, maybe not this weekend, but at least start working on it. So I've got to pick up the stitches here to go back to knitting the double knitting. I think I'll do the one without the buttonhole first, and then this side, and then I can finally bind off the body. I'm also starting to be a little bit worried about my yarn amount. This is how much I've got left. This is what I'm using for the first sleeve, and I think it was a full skein, and as you can see I don't have that much. So I think this, I'm not going to use all of this to finish the body, hopefully, but I think once I finish the body and once I finish the brioche on the first sleeve, I might put it on hold and do the second sleeve, and that way if I have to buy another skein of the Merino, I'll do the ribbing in it so that hopefully it's not too visible, and I'll do it on both sleeves. I do have plenty of mohair left. I've got like 3 full skeins, so I think on the mohair side I'll be fine. It's mostly on the Merino that I'm a bit dubious, but we'll see. So yeah, let's work on that. So, I finished the body officially. I've bound off. I mean, I do have ends to weave in, but the body is finally finished. So it's a little bit tricky to show, but I've finished the button band, and then I picked it all back up and did the double knitting before the bind off, and then I did the bind off. And I will say, I think like the sewn bind off bit took me about 4 hours on this, so that took a while, but it's fine. And I ended up using 2.5mm needles, or no, I ended up using 3mm needles because I'm using 3.5mm needles for the body instead of 3, and so I went down half a needle size to do the double knitting next to the ribbing as suggested in the pattern. And like, I think it looks about the same size, which is really good. And I think you can see on the other side, on the wrong side, you can see that it's smaller, but on the right side it's not so visible. So hopefully you can see that. And as for the sleeve, this is where I am at, and I'm really happy with it. I've got, a few mistakes here and there, but it's fine. And I'm gonna hopefully soon reach the end of the last decrease, and then hopefully I'll be ready to do the ribbing. We'll see, but that's where I'm at. I wanted to show you what the cardigan looked like with one sleeve done, and I'm working on the second sleeve, and I finished the body, and I don't think I showed you that, so let's take a look at that. So I'm in my sweatpants, so ignore that, but the first sleeve is done, and as you can see it's like pretty tight fitting, so I'm hoping it kind of stretches out in blocking. And then the body is looking good, and yeah, I'm like halfway through the second sleeve, so that's really exciting. But I also wanted to show you buttons that I got. Okay, apologies for the lighting change and everything, but I didn't have any battery left, so my camera is charging whilst I'm talking to you. But yeah, I got these two buttons, and I just want to check like which one I'm gonna put on, but I think I'm leaning towards these. So these are both from PetiteKnit. These are the one recommended for this cardigan. Those are the ones she even used for a red cardigan herself, for this one, the Agnete. So you can check out her website if you want the same. And the black ones are also by PetiteKnit, and these are basically 23 millimeters, so these are the same diameter, but I've got 6 and I only need 4, so it would even be better if I kept these for another cardigan, because I do want to make myself a black cardigan in the future, so that's also why I bought those. Like, I bought these in case these don't work out, but I know what I can use them if I don't use them, and I'm leaning more toward these, if that makes sense. So let me like layer them on top of it so that you can see, and hopefully the light will be better when I do that. Okay, so this is how they're looking. You've got the ones PetiteKnit use, which are like yellow with the like black, brown, I don't know, speck, let's say. And then you've got the black ones, which are pretty matte, which I like. And I just think this is too big of a contrast with the red, whereas I feel like these, because they have like the yellow. If you can hear my cat, I apologize. Whereas I feel like these, yeah, I feel like they're less of a contrast, and I think that would be nice, even though I'm literally copying PetiteKnit. Yeah, I'm literally copying her, but that's fine. I'm sure I'm not the first one, so I'm gonna go back to knitting on the sleeve. Hopefully I can finish it pretty soon so that I can then sew on the buttons and then block this, and then it'll be done. Exciting! Sorry, I know this is a bit backlit, but hopefully that's okay. I'm about to bind off on the second sleeve of the Agnete cardigan, and I can't believe it. I just can't believe that this is going to be a finished object today. So I'm gonna bind off, and then I'll add the buttons, and then it's off to blocking. It's been like on my needle since February, end of February, but still it's end of October. So that's, a long-term whip, and I always knew it was going to take forever, but it feels so satisfying to reach the end. Let's do it. I need to add the buttons, but the knitting is complete. So let's try it on before I put the buttons on. Also, can you see Merlin here? So cute. Okay. I think it's perfect. It's definitely a little bit tight fitting, but I think because of brioche it should open up a little bit in blocking, and I didn't want it to be too oversized. So, I do wish the sleeves were a little bit looser, but let's add the buttons and then I can block it. Yay!
Trusting your instincts, realize that knowing looks different to each. When living authentic, do more exploring, deeper than knowing just what is essential for life that is thriving. Go deep, mute out the chatter, feel it, burn off the fire, let go until there's peace to your core. Live a life you adore. Silence the noise, away from the program, removing performance, true self, all that's standing. Live free from worry, live by just being, power in finding your wholeness in now. Go deep, mute out the chatter, feel it, burn off the fire, let go.
My Agnete cardigan is finally done and I'm so excited about it. It took me 8 months to finish this, but it's finally done. It was definitely a labor of love. This was quite an intense knit, not necessarily in terms of the stitch pattern itself, but just how time consuming brioche knit is. but it's finally done. I'm really happy about it, and yeah, let's talk about it. So I think I've mentioned before, but I decided to knit the size medium in order to get a somewhere between a size small and medium size, because my gauge was a little bit off. I still ended up using 3.5mm needles instead of 3mm needles because my gauge was otherwise going to be even tighter, but I actually ended up with the exact same measurement of the size medium. So I've got 110 bust circumference, so that 20cm positives for myself, when the recommended positives is between 10 to 15cm. So if you think this is looking a bit more oversized than it is in PetiteKnit, that's why. But I really love how it's looking. It's definitely a little bit more oversized than I wanted, but I mean, it's not too oversized, if that makes sense. I ended up purchasing the exact same buttons as PetiteKnit, so those are her Galliat buttons, I think, that she recommends on her website. So those were 7.90 euros for me. I don't think I'm counting shipping in this because I bought more than just these buttons. I bought a few more buttons in that order, so I guess the shipping is kind of shared in that way. I also do want to talk about the yarn quantity for this and like the stats in general. So I cast this on the 25th of February and finished it exactly 8 months later on the 25th of October. So that means it was on my needles for 242 days. And for the yarn, I used a 40 euro gift card to buy this yarn. So the total yarn cost for me was 85.76 euros, but if I hadn't used the gift card, it would have been 40 euros more, so do bear that in mind. The pattern cost was 6.98 euros, and because of the buttons as well, the total cost of this project was 76 euros, I think I said, somewhere around that, around 100 euros total for this project. So without the gift card, that would have been 140 euros. So I think that's not too bad for this knit. I'm really, really happy with it. It was definitely time consuming. I think this is one of my most rewarding projects so far I've done, and I really love the finished piece, and I hope you do too. I think that's it. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.